Hey everybody, it's Kevin from 3D Printed Props. In today's video, I am going to be showing off a build I have been wanting to do for quite some time, and it is a gigantic build, both in size and the amount of time it took me to actually finish it. That's right, I'm going to be showing off my Han in Carbonite build. So there are a lot of recognizable and iconic props, obviously, from the Star Wars universe, from R2 to lightsabers to all kinds of crazy stuff. But one of the most recognizable things for true Star Wars fans, or anybody really Star Wars related, is the Han in Carbonite from Empire Strikes Back, when he is frozen in Carbonite, and then of course thawed in Return of the Jedi. Spoilers there. And I've been wanting to build this thing for quite some time, and it has taken me quite some time because it is a big project. So it's obviously not right here next to me like things usually are on the desk. It is over hanging on my wall near the studio and near the shop, and it is just looking so cool. This is a life-size build, and it was a lot of fun to work on, and it did take me quite a while. And why? It's one of those huge projects that have got a lot of different pieces, parts that I would just do over time in the garage, in the driveway, because it's so big and you got to do a lot of painting and sanding. And of course you don't want to do that in the house, at least I don't. And it has a lot of little Greebles and a lot of pieces, parts that I did here in the shop. But when I say a long time, I think I've been working on this for 2 or 3 years on and off. So what makes this build so involved are all really the pieces that you use to put it together. Now, over at the Custom 3D Stuff, again, you've probably seen him on Adam Savage's Attested channel. They built one together. He has everything, and that can get pricey if you buy every single piece and part. So I did sort of a piecemeal thing. I went ahead and bought the frame from him, and that is a 1/2-inch CNC'd MDF. Really good quality. It went together really easy, super easy to put together, very sturdy. That was great. Of course, you need some plywood. You need the form. And that kit from him cost $250. Well worth it if you're going to build one of these than trying to cut all this stuff up yourself. Now, the trickiest thing in this build is probably the Volvo panels. What I ended up doing is I 3D printed them. I'll have the links below. Over on Thingiverse, there is someone who has all the Greebles, all the little pieces, parts, and little doodads that stick on the actual Volvo panels, but they also have the Volvo panels. And I printed them on a resin printer, but you can print them on a standard FDM printer. I would definitely go about that route, but maybe do a cost comparison. I think I did back in the day. Custom 3D Stuff, they sell all of the ones you need for, I think it's $225 or $250. See how much that's going to cost you in filament. I think it came out a lot cheaper for me to just print it. I think it took me 4 rolls at like $13 a piece, so obviously it came out quite a bit cheaper. There was some more cleanup time, but again, well worth the savings. I also printed all the Greebles, all the little pieces, parts, except for a few metal parts that were just going to look better metal. And I'll list the things in the descriptions that I paid for, and you'll see them when I'm putting them on in the next section. The electronics I got from Fetronics. He is no longer in business selling electronics, but I'll put links to other places where you can get the electronics, or you don't have to do the electronics. I just thought they looked really cool on those 2 hero panels to really bring the thing alive. Let's go, I guess we aren't going to go behind the fake wall right away. We're going to go to my garage. We're going to go to the driveway. We're going to go behind the fake wall. We're going to go all over the place to work on this build. I hope you enjoy it. It was super fun, and I'll see you at the end to give you a recap. So let's get going on a project that I have been wanting to do for quite some time. Of course, this is the Han Solo in Carbonite build, and I started with these CNC cut panels that I got from Zenith, I believe is his name. Links are below. They were incredible, very precise, and I started by laying them out and getting them on the right ends, which goes where, and you can see they sort of fit together almost like puzzle pieces. and they were just really well done. So what I did was I measured out some areas and some spaces here because these gaps, these holes need to be filled in. So I went ahead and just cut up some really thin plywood or Luan, I can't remember what this was, just to fill those spaces up. Now again, there's going to be a lot of shop tools in this, so if you're doing this, please be careful. So I filled these spaces in with this, and the one in the middle is long because it covers up both, and it'll help make that seam more sturdy. But to really help with that, I cut up some blocks to reinforce some things. Now, I went with my dad's tried and true, using a lot of glue. He was a glue fanatic. I've talked about him a few times on some other projects we worked on together before he passed away. And he used a ton of glue, a lot of glue. I got a bunch of his shop flannels when he passed, and some places on them are hard as a rock because there's just, he would wipe glue on them, and I enjoy wearing those when I work. So I'm just going ahead again and adding glue, and then adding these 1/4 inch or whatever size panels they were to these areas, because you fill them in when we're gonna go ahead and add on the actual side pieces, all those electronic pieces, the Volvo panels. So what you're going to use for these types of things, this type of build, is you're going to need clamps. I was lucky enough to have a bunch of these pass load nailers. They're super, super handy. I put in some braces here to really shore up that joint that's in the center, and braces to shore up the joints on the side. I then used a countersink bit because I didn't want to have the screw head showing. So this countersink allows the screws to go in. Now I love these finishing screws. I'll put links below. I can't remember who makes them, but man, they bite and they stay in and they go in so smooth. So here's the frame. All the little braces, all the little brackets. Really, really super happy with that. And now we're going to put the framing around the frame. And this is, again, pretty simple. A ton of glue to really make sure it's sturdy. And then using the pass load, the brad nailer to put these in place. Could you be using a hammer? Yes, not a problem. Again, I was lucky enough to have these from my father. And look at that. I was just so crazy excited when I saw the shape come to life. So now we're going to go ahead and shore up where you'll actually be mounting the HIC files, the actual solo files. And I don't know why I was having such a hard time with this tape measure, but you can see here I was. And I wanted to leave this in because I was just, I don't know what was wrong. I'm going ahead and using some liquid nails and putting some plywood in. Now this is, I think it's 3/4 inch plywood. You could use half. I had this in my garage, so I used it. Is there going to add more weight to it? Yes, but I didn't feel like buying any plywood, and I had this already, so I cut up a bunch of pieces, and I used that. I went ahead and used liquid nails to put that in, and then I used some small screws to really lock it in place because I really wanted this to be, super secure. Now, the non-fun part of everything is, of course, all the sanding. You can see here it is the winter when I'm working on this part. I've got the garage door maybe open because there's some light coming in, so this dust can go away, but it's cold. And I'm using some wood putty to cover up all of the blemishes, of course, from the screws, and to hide the joinery of the box itself. And, you're just going to have to add this, feather it, sand it. I am not what you would call an expert in hiding this kind of stuff. My wife is. She can spackle better than anyone I know. But, you're going to be doing a lot of spackling. You're going to be doing a lot of wood filling to cover all that stuff up. And you might have to do it twice. I think I ended up going over it 2 or 3 times. And then once it was ready, I sanded it. You can see now, I believe it's, I don't know what season, maybe fall. and I am going ahead and sanding everything down. I moved this thing outside because I didn't want dust just totally filling the garage. Now we're going to prime it, and I'm using this sandable 2-in-1 primer. You know, could I have used a spray gun? I could have, but, you know, I said I've got more control with this, and I hate cleaning a big spray gun. So I just used a bunch of cans of this. I buy them like in a 24 pack because I use them all the time for 3D printing, and I painted it. Now it's time for the actual fiberglass head and hick body, and I'm trimming away the excess fiberglass. Wear gloves for this because it is fiberglass, and you don't really want that getting in your fingers. So I'm just cutting away and everything. Now, if anybody asks, and I'm sure you will, where did you buy this? I bought this off of a guy on the RPF forum probably 4 years ago, and I cannot remember who, and I tried to look it up, but I couldn't find it. Now, here's a clue or a little tip I learned watching Zenith's videos. You know, go ahead and add some really thin plywood to where you're going to put hick. I'm going to call it hick, the Han shape, because this way you don't have to fill it so much with glue or with not epoxy, but some type of filler to get that carbonite effect. You know, why fill it up so much and use so much glue or so much filler if, you know, you can just add some plywood to it to bring it up to the edge a little bit more. So that was a great tip to learn from him. And I am just going ahead and using liquid nails to do that. And then I'm going to actually hold it into place where it's sticking up a little bit with some of these screws. And then I'll go ahead and take them out later and then just fill that with some epoxy sculpt. This way I know it's sort of held down and it's super flat. Now, for the Han and Carbonite, I saw somebody using this and I wanted to try it. It's really like frosting, and it's going to fill in a lot of this stuff. In the end, I'm not super happy with how sharp some of the edges look, and it took, like, I don't know, a month to actually dry fully. Maybe it was because it was cold. But I'm just spreading this around, and I'm going to fix it later on. But again, because in the end, I wasn't 100% happy with it. But the fix, I think, really worked. And I think in the long run, this is a good way to do this because it fills in all the spaces. And then later, I'm going to add glue, some Elmer's glue. And I didn't have to add that much because I had all this filler in. Again, there's a million different ways to do this. Some people just use only Elmer's glue. Some people use this type of spackle. In the end, whatever works for you and whatever you want to spend or whatever you want to do, try that. This, I think, although looking pretty cool in the beginning, looked a little too harsh. Now we got to fill up these things, and I use epoxy sculpt, and I love this stuff. It's a 2-part epoxy, and I mixed up way too much. And the stuff's expensive, so it kind of sucked that I ended up wasting so much. I thought I needed a lot more, so mix the two together in small batches, and then if you need more, just mix some more up. Now, water really helps to smooth this stuff out, so you can use water and smooth it out. You can use some tools also, some clay tools. I didn't have them out there with me, so I just went ahead and used my fingers for this. And you're just going to fill this in and then sort of rough it up to make it look normal. And then I went ahead and sprayed it with some 2-in-1 primer to see how it looked. And some areas needed sanding, and I used a really aggressive sandpaper for this. And then I said, you know, like I said earlier, I don't like how sharp this looks, because the Carbonite looked more sort of liquidy and movie, and those kind of look very kind of harsh and sharp using that spackle. So I mixed up some Elmer's glue and water. I had a ton, believe it or not, you're probably surprised, I had a ton of like 3 gallons of glue from my dad, and I mixed it up with water and poured it in these spots, and then made some, you know, sort of pouring kind of designs with it, and ended up being really, really happy that it looked more and more like the carbonite effect. Now I'm going to use a round over bit because you don't have to do this, but the original one has it, and it really helps finish the piece and makes it look like you've done something to it. You've made it. It's not just like a box. This is a router. If you don't have one, don't worry about doing this. You could sand it if you want, but this really gives it a nice edge. So here's what I used for the sides, and it came out really, really well. You can see here, some of the sanding wasn't that great. I just got done with it, I'll be honest, with filling spots and adding spots. This is something that gets bounced around the universe, bounced around the galaxy. It's going to have some wear. And in the end, I am super happy with that color. And you can get that stuff right at Lowe's or on Amazon. Links will be below for everything that I used. Now it's time to cover this up. And for this, I used a flat nickel. So I just covered the sides roughly and started painting this guy up with this nickel. And I really like it, how it turned out. I wanted sort of some contrast in the shade of the case and the actual top part, the carbonite part. And in the end, I was really happy with the contrast and the tone of this. Now, of course, we are going to have to weather it up because it looks way too shiny new, and it doesn't look like the actual hick. Look at that sculpt. Man, that is so awesome. I can't believe I have this. So to weather it, I just use an old brush. I mix some black acrylic paint with water, and I'm just spreading it all over it. And then I'm using a paper towel to dab away things. You don't want to take too much off or you get rid of the weathering. And the paper towel gives it sort of a natural look, the dabbing, because of the creases in the actual paper towel. You don't want to wipe because then you have more of a uniform looking type thing. This way it looks mottled and it looks patchy, which is what we want. And I love weathering. It is just super fun. It makes everything come to life, and it weather where it makes sense. In cracks and crevices, there's going to be more dirt, and then maybe on the surfaces you're going to have less dirt. But wherever there's like a deeper crack, a deeper crevice, bang, that's where you want to add more of the weathering. And sometimes I take too much off and I realize, oh, now it looks too clean, and I go ahead and I add some more of the weathering effect in there. And again, it's just black acrylic paint and some water, a paper towel, and you're ready to go. Okay, these are the Volvo panels. I 3D printed them on a resin printer, and these would have cost a fortune for me to buy. Again, links below where you could get these from Zenith. But I have a big enough resin printer that I could have printed these, and I did. And again, I'll have the links to the files. I can't remember where I got them. I think it was Thingiverse. And they are all primed. I didn't even need to sand them because the resin prints looked really, really great. And now I'm going to hit them with this black paint just to give them that nice look that they have when they're finished. And I'm outside for this. Of course, never spray paint inside unless you want to get divorced. And if you're not divorced, I guess go ahead, spray paint inside. Now, they're glossy, and I didn't want them glossy, so I used a flat cover, and I liked them a lot better flat. Now, all these little Greebles are resin printed, and I've got them taped down so that when I do spray paint them with the silver spray paint that I'm using, this chrome spray paint, they don't fly away. This is a great way to paint little pieces and parts like that with some tape. Now, the back of the Volvo panels, they have metal. So what I did was I bought a roll of really thin metal, maybe 1/16 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, I can't remember. And I measured this out on paper. Then I just cut it out with a pair of scissors. That's how thin it is. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure I'm doing these scissors no favor, but I had no problem actually cutting this stuff out. You might want to wear some gloves because the edges are sharp, but I just risked it. Now we're going to put these in here. I want to see how it looks, and I'm really happy with how that turned out. So we're going to add some caulks, just some quickie seal. I had it in the house, so I used it. I went and put way too much on, and some of it blooped out. That is a technical term. To the outside, and I had to wipe that away. So watch out you don't over glue. And then I just put a bead around the outside on the bottom part here that you won't see to hold it in place better. So those were pretty much done. Now it was time to work on the hero pieces. And these are the ones with the lights are on. Links to where I got all this stuff will be below. And this sucker's going to light up. It's going to look like the hero panels in the movie. And when it did, I was just like, I cannot believe this. So I get all these pieces parts, and for the most part, they fit really well. These weren't made specifically for these files, these panels that I got on Thingiverse, but they're pretty darn close because whoever modeled these really did a good job in modeling them off of the original Volvo panels, which are the same things that the person who made these parts used to create these pieces. So I did have to do a little bit of sanding here or there to make things line up. But man, I was really surprised at how easily everything fit together. And some things are a little off, but it's okay. We'll make it work. Whatever. So I'm just super gluing all these pieces in. And this hero panel was really, really cool to do. So there is one of the pieces of electronics. There's the other, using super glue to put these in. And I tested them all before I actually glued them in, because the worst thing you can do is like glue something in and it not actually work, but all the files were working fine. Now again, this whole kit that I got for these hero panels I purchased, and the links will be below. There are no holes in these, so I don't know if the person just, I'm sure they model it off the Volvo panels, and there are no holes there in the Volvo panels. So I put that plate where I was going to have it, and I used this drill. It's a bit that I use a lot for resin. It's specifically made for plastics and resin. Again, links will be below. This way it cuts down on any kind of chipping. Worst thing you want is it to catch and just like crack the resin panel. I've had that happen with other drill bits, and these just don't do it. So I went ahead and glued this down and then started working with these little lenses. Again, all came in the kit, and they look really cool. I had a little bit of a problem getting them in. The holes weren't lining up totally well, or like the lenses were too big, but I took my time and was able to get them in. And then I added the wiring in the back. They sort of pop into the back of those things. And I think in the end, used some hot glue to make sure they didn't fall out. But you can see when it's all wired up and you're turning this knob, it actually does stuff, which is really, just really super cool. Now there's just some lights that on the back here that has that sort of green glow effect. And for that, I just went ahead and, again, hot glued it down, and then hot glued this, I think it's like a Christmas ornament bulb that I had bought for some other project. I had a bunch of them, and I just spray painted it with some frosted spray paint. And now I'm just going to put the knobs on. This was a great little kit. I can't remember how much it cost. This whole build, I'll try to do a breakdown of the cost of it. But this one is a little pricey because there's a lot of pieces parts. Now, this is the one thing that did not fit. So I had to print up one that was going to fit. I also found a great reference for where everything goes, because now it's time to glue down all these little Greebles, and they're different in all the different Volvo panels. So again, I had to find those references and then add all these pieces and parts. If they're totally not exact and they're not perfect, you know what? They're close enough for me. I love how it turned out. I tried to do my best, and I was, in the end, very, very happy with what I was able to accomplish. I think the printed resin parts look fantastic. They look like they're metal. And they didn't cost a lot of money. They just, they're so small, they cost basically nothing to print resin-wise. So we need to do a few little things here to finish this panel out. And again, this was all part of the kit to add a little bit of LED and a little bit of coolness to the actual file itself. And a little super glue. A little too much super glue, as you can see it blooped down the sides. And again, some resin prints that I made. Now it's sticker time. And these were fun to put on. I really would like it if they were, if I could have found, or if I bought. They're probably out there and I just missed them. I would have really liked some dry rub ones so you didn't see the actual plastic. that were around it, but what are you going to do? Now I'm going to go ahead and screw these into place, and you can see now I think it's summer. I'm in a t-shirt, and these just screw into those pieces of plywood we first put in, and they are really starting to come alive. They look, it is just looking like a Han in Carbonite. And all of them just get screwed in, a couple screws. I think I put a bead of liquid nails or just some caulk in the back to hold the top part up. Nope, I didn't. I just went ahead and screwed them in. They stayed in well. There was enough friction to hold them in. Again, I did this probably 6 months ago, and I'm finally getting around to doing all this voiceover and getting this video ready to get out. This is one of those projects I wanted to do a little bit at a time and not go crazy with, because there were just so many pieces, parts, research to do to get it ready. But once these things went on, I was like, wow, this is a Han in Carbonite, and I cannot believe it. I was so happy with how everything was looking. Now, I had to drill some holes here. I probably would have done this earlier, so I wasn't going to get sawdust all over everything, but that's fine. We'll just clean it off, because those holes are for the wiring. And again, this just slid right in place. Again, whoever modeled these panels, they also, they knew they were going to fit in these spaces or I knew they were going to fit in these spaces because Zenith, who did these, he used the original measurements from the Volvo panels like this modeler did. So they did a fantastic job. And this is sort of like a secondary hero piece where we actually see some LED, and those just wire up in the back and then get plugged into the wall, which we'll take a look when I hang this and you see it mounted in my basement, because there's no place in my living room or in my house, upstairs house, for them. Some we're just going to finish up by putting these sort of cans that go in the top and the bottom. Some people don't bother putting them in the top just because you're not going to see it unless you're tall, and I'm not, so I'll never see them. But I had them printed, and I went ahead and glued them in, and then everything just came together. It looked awesome, and I used some clamps to hold it in, and it was time to go to my basement, get out the impact screwdriver and some concrete screws and mount it. So I hung it up using sort of like a French cleat system, and here it is. I tell you what, the weathering is the key to this entire Carbonite look. Yes, you've got to put the glue in and the different pieces, parts to get that swirliness and whatnot, but weathering it makes the detail pop. As you can see in the face, a lot of just water and acrylic. That's all we did. And man, it looks cool. Now here are the electronics. Really, really neat. You flip the switch. You've got the lights that go on, the little green light. You've got the lettering on the side. And it really helps make this hero panel come alive. And again, there's just a few pieces I bought here. Everything else, the electronics, of course, were bought. But the pieces themselves, other than that grate and those two knobs, all 3D printed and came out looking great. And the little secondary hero panel looks nice and shiny with the lights. And then of course we weather it up to make it really, really shine. So as you could see in that video, it did take me some time, because sometimes I'm wearing a jacket, sometimes I'm wearing flannel shirts, sometimes I'm in shorts. So I would work on this in the winter and the summer and just go through all the seasons working on this guy. And I'll tell you what, I could not be more happy with how it came out. The electronics on the side make it come to life. It just looks so cool every time I see it. And I want to let you in on a secret on how cool my wife is. When I finished this, she said, well, where are we going to put it up here? I don't know if there's enough wall space upstairs. She was going to let me put this in the main house, just hanging on the wall, like in the kitchen or in the dining room or in the living room. I can't even explain to you how lucky I am to have a wife like that. But in the end, we really didn't have enough wall space up there that didn't have prints on it we liked, or furniture near it, because it's big, it's life size. So this thing, make sure you have enough room for it, because it does take up a lot of space. But man, it looks awesome. So again, if you want to build one of these, all the stuff's below. Please click like and subscribe. This was a super fun build. I really hope you enjoy it, and I will see you in the next one.